In the late 1940s, with the introduction of smaller motors, HO scale manufacturers really started to see just how far they could take miniaturization of their models. One of the first to market, and probably one of the most successful of the time, was Pinline with their Whitcomb switchers. Right here I have the D1, which is a lead-bodied unit on a brass chassis with a Pitman DC60 running through almost the entire length of the model, turning a belt drive that turns the gears to each axle. And this is an incredibly heavy unit that can pull far more than any switcher its size should ever be able to pull. And then later on, Athearn would come out with their Hustler switcher, which is probably the longest lasting and most popular of all, and also the cheapest, being a plastic bodied unit with a central motor and two rubber bands driving the axles. Also, around that time, Japanese brass switchers imported by Ken Kidder and ATT would become popular, and on the steam side, these would be about the smallest you could get for a very long time. But there's one more model which is rarer than any of these, and probably the least known of any of them, and I'm guessing most of you have never heard of the Lindsay Stubby yard diesel. Introduced, I believe, in the early 1950s, with production later carried on for a few years by Kimtrin, the Lindsay Stubby yard switcher has a body that's about the same size as the Pinline Whitcomb switchers, but it actually has the edge in miniaturization thanks to its chassis design, which has these 36-inch steam engine type drive wheels with the side rod system that's driven by their smallest 7-pole motor, and it has a wheelbase that's smaller than any of the other switchers that I have here. Now, the model may look pretty bad in its current state, but it's actually in excellent condition from what I can tell just from a quick look around it. So in this video, I'll be doing a full teardown and restoration of it, and thanks to the simplicity of it, I don't think this is going to be a very long one. Now, of course, the first thing I need to do is fully disassemble the model so I can give it a good cleaning and strip off all that old paint. I think there are only 2 screws holding the body on, or it might even just be one, that really long one there. Yeah, so just that one screw holding the body on. Then there's the chassis with that little motor. You can see the worm drive with all metal gearing. So that should be a really nice quality system there. Continuing further, take that screw off, and I think that'll allow the rear pilot to be removed. Yep, there that goes. Now as for the front pilot, let's see, is that screwed on? I think that's just part of the chassis, so I will leave that in place. Now, for the motor, that should be this screw right here. Or maybe not. Oh, nope, actually the motor is held by this screw. Okay. Yeah, so that's just a pressure fit. The screw just pushes down on the top of the motor to hold it in place. Looks like I'll have to do some cleanup of this motor. That's turning pretty stiff and I feel some grit inside of it. But getting on to the rest of this, now let's take out that screw so it doesn't get lost anywhere. It turns pretty smoothly. Yeah, this should be a good running model. I think all I really need to do here is a good cleaning. You might also notice that the chassis here is thinner than your usual HO scale models because they also offered a narrow gauge version of this. Come on. There we go. The paint was gluing that down a little bit. There we go. Nice, so you've got separate brass bearings that keep things centered and rolling freely. So it's not just sitting in the die-cast slots like most of your other models of the day. Then you've got your pickup wiper here. And that's it for the disassembly, aside from taking off these couplers, which I just need to push those pins out of there. As it turns out, the front pilot does come off. It was just kind of glued on there with a bit of that paint that ran inside. So now with all that disassembled, I'll throw these parts into some paint stripper and get to work. And I almost missed it, but there's also a weight that goes inside the front of the body. And there we go, about 20 minutes with some lacquer thinner, a toothbrush, and then a good cleaning in the sink. And these parts are ready to go. Now the next thing I need to do is get this motor cleaned up. You can see I've already pulled the worm off, just using my Northwest Shortline puller. Now this needs to be fully disassembled to get everything cleaned out. So first thing to do is take out these brushes. Just undo the springs there. They pull right out. Then one big screw in the back. Take that out. The back comfort comes off. Looks like the armature is coming with it, so might as well just pull all that. Oh, and one of the bearings came out with it too. Well, that just means I can do even more to get it clean. Or actually, that's not one of the bearings. That's just a interesting. That's just a spacer to keep the armature in place. Okay. So take those washers off, make sure they don't get lost. And then the magnet. There it goes. All right. So now I can get on to cleaning that armature, and I'll just give it my usual good cleaning and polishing of the commutator, clean up the shafts, and then putting everything back together, I'll hit the magnet with the recharger, and that should be running like new. Okay, everything's cleaned up. And before I put it together, if you've never seen the insides of one of these Lindsay motors before, these are really pretty advanced even by today's standards. They're just not as efficient as the newer motors, but you've got a 7-pole skewed armature there, and just a really nice quality steel shaft too. But then also, in the other parts of the motor, you have self-centering bearings at both ends to make sure that they're always turning as freely as possible. And then the magnet they use, this horseshoe-shaped one, I believe that's Alnico 5, which was about the strongest magnet material that you could get at that time, at least on the consumer-grade parts market. So they really, really put a lot into these motors to make them just as good as possible. They're really impressive pieces of equipment. And there it is, all reassembled. Everything is aligned just right, and the magnet is recharged. And with all of that, everything's working pretty smoothly. Low speed control is pretty good. It's a fast running motor, but it also has very consistent speed control, which is good. And at top speed there, it only draws about 0.2 amps. Before I recharged the magnet, that was 0.3, so it definitely made a difference. It also made a noticeable difference in torque when I grabbed the shaft, so that is running like new. A little bit of work later with a wire wheel to take off some of the main crud, and then a buffing wheel to take care of the rest, some fresh oil, and this is working really, really nicely. I mean, that is just turning as smooth as glass, so I'm expecting that this is going to be an excellent running little model. Okay, chassis is all reassembled with the electrical contact and all. So now, let's see, start by fitting that screw up there. Drop the pilot down on there. And then the weight in the correct direction. Drop the body down on there. Watch that insulation. Okay. All right. Now before I do any repainting or put the details back on, let's see how this runs on the track. All right, hopefully I did this correctly so there are no short circuits or anything else. That took off nice and smooth. that's running really nicely. Let's see how it does crossing those switches. Nope. Might need to do a little extra there. Okay, so the back wheels are fine, but the front wheels, looks like the gauge is a bit too narrow there. That's an easy enough fix though. Just take those out, put them in the wheel puller, and get that adjusted. Okay, the gauge is adjusted, and I also made some minor adjustments to the electrical pickup wipers to prevent any shorts, and I think that took care of it. Does need to pick up a little speed to make it through those switches because of that short wheelbase. But it's doing it without derailing now. Yeah, this is one where, because of that short wheelbase, in order to be able to run reliably through switches, it'll probably have to have a freight car permanently coupled behind it for additional electrical pickup, because without that, it's just going to stop. As long as it gets a little speed though, a little momentum going, it can make it through the switches. That really is a smooth runner. Honestly, this thing coasts along so well, it's almost tuned like a Swiss watch, I would say. Well, now that I know that this is running right and that there are no more problems, I think it's time to get this thing all painted and finished. Everything is painted and lettered and finished now, and I went with the same Central Illinois logging fictional railroad that I have for most of my other small switchers of this sort of design, and I think that turned out looking real nice. So black body, black wheels, silver frame. Added a new headlight jewel. That's the one that came out of my Mantua Bell of the 80s 440 that I ended up not using for that. And then I also added some KD number 58 couplers, and to do that I clipped off the back mount of it that fits in the coupler box normally, and then drilled a couple holes in just the shank there, so one for the swivel and then the other through the side, a really tiny one, so that I could put a spring wire in there. And it's not perfect, but it works fine. It'll couple, it'll hold on to cars. So I think that turned out looking pretty nice overall. And now I've got that coupled up to my KD logging car set, so 3 of those cars there, along with the little caboose at the end. And there are the other engines in back you can see there. Takes off nice and smooth, runs along nice and quiet. In fact, this is probably one of the quietest models I've ever gotten from the early 1950s era. It's that 7-pole motor, and then the gearing too, it's all so well engineered. So for its day, this really is a super nice little switcher. So there you go, the Lindsay Stubby Yard Diesel. Probably one of the nicest little switchers you could get in the early 1950s, with its quiet performance and very smooth performance too, as well as just the huge amount of pulling power it has thanks to the all-metal construction and lead weight inside. So I wouldn't be surprised if this can pull about at least 20 cars along without any problems at all. So really, if you're looking at getting one of these models, probably the only two shortcomings are the short wheelbase, which has some difficulty getting over switches without any power loss, and then the fact that these are pretty much impossible to install DCC in without some significant modification in some areas of the motor, or just a different motor entirely, which one of the reasons you get Lindsay models is for the motor. So yeah, beyond that though, very nicely made. The detail, even though it's crude, it still looks pretty nice. You can add whatever detail parts you want to really dress it up and make yourself a very nice little model.